When it came to restoring old items found in attics to their original form and beauty, Rick Dale and his crew were the best. They were so good that they started the hit reality TV show The American Restoration. The show was a big hit for a while and everyone was looking through their attics for their next treasure, but in 2016, when the show was canceled, everything went wrong and many people are still wondering what happened and why the show was canceled. You already know this, but it all started with a terrible accident. In this video, we'll look at what happened that day and why it was the last straw that ended the American Restoration for good. But how can we talk about the American Restoration without talking about Rick Dale? Unlike many people, Dale had an eye for antiques since he was a child, and as he grew up, he was surrounded by many that he loved to restore. He started restoring things long before TV became popular. Rick was born in Long Beach, California on December 13, 1970, into a family that encouraged him to think outside the box and find solutions to problems. His father, an Army veteran, had a big impact on developing this interest by always telling Rick and his brother Ron that they should fix things instead of buying new ones. Rick was naturally curious as a child and would often take things apart at home and put them back together again later. He had a special love for old things because he was F. In his teens, Rick was very interested in details and started doing small restoration jobs on bikes, old tools, and other things. Rick's professional career in restoration began as a hobby. After high school, he did a few odd jobs but never stopped loving restoring things. His first big project was fixing up an old Coke machine for his dad. Friends and neighbors asked him to do similar work, which gave him the idea to turn his hobby into a business in the late 1980s. He decided to take a chance and open Rick's Restorations in Las Vegas, Nevada. At first, the business was small and focused on vintage appliances and memorabilia. Over time, Rick became known for his meticulous attention to detail and ability to bring old, worn-out items back to life. His work became popular among collectors, and his client base steadily grew until Rick Dale was discovered by the History Channel and made famous on the show American Restoration. His business, Rick's Restorations, continued to grow. In Las Vegas, Nevada, Restorations was a small but successful business. It wasn't flashy or well-known outside of collector circles, but it earned a strong reputation for quality work and attention to detail. Rick specialized in restoring vintage Americana, especially things that made people feel nostalgic. Some of the things he worked on were Coca-Cola machines, jukeboxes, gas pumps, neon signs, and antique memorabilia. These weren't just cosmetic fixes. Rick made sure that every piece worked well. Sticking to the shop's original style and era, it was a practical Nunes workspace with separate areas for disassembly, repair, painting, and reassembly. Shelves were lined with old parts, tools, and half-finished projects that showed how much work went into each item. It wasn't a showroom or tourist attraction back then, it was just a place where things got done. Most of Rick's customers were private collectors, small business owners, or antique dealers who wanted something unique that he didn't have in stock. Not yet, but Rick's name was well known in the area and among people who liked vintage restorations. Word of mouth kept the projects coming in because Rick was reliable, skilled, and deeply committed to preserving the history behind each piece. Running a business like this wasn't easy. Many of the items Rick worked on were in terrible shape when they came in, rusty, broken, and missing parts. It was hard to find replacement parts for decades-old items. Sometimes Rick made parts from scratch. When TV producers found Rick, he had already made a name for himself in the restoration world. They saw how much he loved his work and the stories behind the things he restored, which led to the creation of the show American Restoration. The show brought Rick's craft and shop to a whole new audience, but before it became famous, it was just a hard-working shop run by a guy who loved giving old things a new look. If there's one show that brings things back to life with a lot of storytelling, it's American Restoration. The show Pawn Stars, on the other hand, showed people bringing all sorts of interesting old things to a Las Vegas pawn shop to sell or pawn them. Sometimes these things were in bad shape and needed to be fixed before they could be worth anything. That's when Rick Dale stepped in. He was already running his own restoration business, Rick's Restorations, and was known as one of the best in the business. When Pawn Stars needed someone to fix up an old Coca-Cola vending machine, they called Rick, and he did a great job. Not only did Rick do a great job on the machine, but he also explained what he was doing with such passion and skill that the History Channel producers loved how he could tell a story about the item's history while showing how hard it was to make it look brand new. They thought Rick could have a successful career. Show about Rick and his team restoring old things like jukeboxes, petrol pumps, and neon signs would be pitched to him. Each episode would show the step-by-step process of turning something old and broken into something beautiful and useful. But it wouldn't just be about the work, it would also show the stories behind the objects and why they were important to the people who brought them in. Rick liked the idea, and soon the cameras were rolling on the show. When it first aired in October 2010, American Restoration was an instant hit. People loved seeing the amazing changes that were made and learning about the history of the items. Rick's enthusiastic and skilled team, along with his family dynamic with his wife Kelly and son Tyler, made the show even more enjoyable. Each episode ended with a big reveal where the restored item was shown off to the customer, who was almost always blown away. This moment of surprise and joy was a big part of why so many people connected with American Restoration. People from all over the world started sending their old things to Las Vegas in the hopes that Rick could make them look brand new. The first 6 seasons of American Restoration put viewers in the shoes of Rick Dale and his team at Rick's Restorations, a shop in Las Vegas that specializes in bringing old things back to life. With its expert craftsmanship, interesting characters, and heartfelt stories, the show quickly became a favorite among fans of. People were introduced to Rick's shop and the people who worked there in the first season. Each episode showed the restoration of a different vintage item, such as a petrol pump or a barber chair. Customers would bring in pieces that were often very personal or historically important, and Rick's team worked hard to honor those stories through their restorations. Rick's teenage son Tyler was part of the shop's crew, but he sometimes irritated his dad with his. Rick's brother Ron, a slow but skilled picker, and Brettley, Rick's stepson, who was funny and endearing, made up a team whose dynamic added humor and warmth to the show. As the show went on, the projects got more difficult and varied. Customers brought in everything from neon signs to antique stoves, and Rick himself sometimes bought things to fix up and sell. The Rick's Tips segment gave viewers a chance to learn. During these seasons, family relationships played a bigger role. Rick's wife Kelly ran the business side of the shop, keeping the team organized and dealing with customers. In a memorable episode, Rick proposed to Kelly, which added a personal touch that viewers loved. Tyler was promoted to shop foreman, which caused some tension within the team, but by the middle seasons, Rick's Restorations was running like a well-oiled machine. He often worked on 6 to 12 projects at once, ranging from toy trains to custom motorcycles. Nico, a painter, and Leonard, a picker who loved looking for hidden treasures, joined Rick's growing team. Longtime crew members like Cowboy, a grumpy but skilled metal polisher, and Kyle, the finisher, remained central to the shop's success. Despite their skills, the team's clashing personalities kept things interesting. Ron's slow work pace and Cowboy's grumpiness often put Rick's patience to the test. Brettley started to show that he was a good picker, and in one episode he surprised everyone by auctioneering items. Rick kept a balance between expecting perfection and keeping a family atmosphere throughout the whole thing. By the 6th season, American Restoration had hit its stride, and the team took on some of their biggest projects yet. Each restoration showed off their skills and creativity, and the stories behind the items stayed a central focus, emphasizing the emotional connection customers have with their belongings. As Tyler took on more responsibility and Brettley gained faith in his own abilities, the shop also grew. Kelly's management skills kept the business on track, which allowed Rick's artistic vision to thrive. The first 6 seasons of American Restoration were a perfect mix of history, craftsmanship, and heart. Rick Dale's love for restoration was matched by the personalities of his team, whose quirks and relationships gave the show more depth, from the stunning changes made to rusted antiques to customers' heartfelt reactions. In every episode celebrated the magic of giving old things new life. Even though the show eventually moved on to other restoration shops, Rick's Restorations is still a beloved part of reality TV. It wasn't just about fixing things, it was also about telling stories, celebrating history, and making people happy through the art of restoration. But tragedy struck in the 7th season. Instead of focusing on Rick Dale, the History Channel made a big change. His time riding bulls and Broncos has made him a skilled outfitter. He enjoys a quiet life in the outdoors, away from the noise of social media and the spotlight. The story doesn't have to end badly, even though many people still love the show. Rick Dale and the crew are doing well, but it was a tragedy that the show had to end.